How do you make sure your messaging resonates with a hyper-specific niche audience? What kind of content should you publish to attract B2B buyers? And how can you make sure the services you offer align with the needs of your ideal customer? Well, you're about to find out. Welcome to the I Want to Know podcast. My guest today is Mike Malloy. Mike is a transformational connector who gives overwhelmed entrepreneurs more time and money by connecting them to trustworthy fractional executives and investors to scale their companies. He shares his resources, network, and dad jokes with relentless generosity. Mike has previous experience serving as a Deloitte consultant, traveling sunglasses salesman and CEO, incubator program director, and adjunct professor at Georgetown University. So he's done it all. He's also a longtime listener of the show, and I'm thrilled to have him on. So, hey, Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Josh. Happy to be here. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yeah, perfect. So let's jump right into it. What is the first thing you want to know?
Yeah. So why did the chicken fall in the well?
You have truly stumped me on my own show. Why?
Because it couldn't see that well.
See, there you go. He told you he told you he was going to bring the dad jokes. He brought the dad jokes. Everybody, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. All right, Mike, fire away. I'd say what's your first question, but I guess it's now technically your second question. So what is it?
So given that Malloy Industries' goal is to enhance the effectiveness of B2B SaaS CEOs and matching them with the right fractional sales executives, how can we refine our messaging to better communicate our unique value that we offer and make sure that the messaging resonates and kind of lands with the ideal client profile?
Cool. So let me dive into this first by asking you a question. You use the phrase unique value, which I love, and I actually think is one of the biggest mistakes people make in general. I was talking to someone earlier today, actually, who they're a web designer, right? And so I was like, well, what do you do? And their whole pitch was like, they help you build a better website. And I was like, yeah, okay, but like, why you? Like, lots of people can help me build a better website. So I'm curious, when you say unique value, how would you describe what your company's unique value is?
I think our number one unique differentiator is that we're relentlessly generous. That's our core value. We seek to add value above and beyond and to add so much value on the front end, even before people hire us, that it becomes a no-brainer. Of course, they know us, like us, trust us, and then want to do business when they have empty seats on the bus and need a fractional executive there. Trying to figure out how we make that apparent to people who don't know me, haven't known me for 15 plus years in the DC startup community. That's something that I think we're struggling with.
So one of the keys here is, so I think you said relentlessly generous. Is that the phrase you use? So that's a great phrase. The obvious question then is, when you drill deeper, what does that look like? Right? What are the specifics? So I think when you're in your messaging saying that, it's interesting because you clearly have an answer in your head, right? You're like, okay, one of the things that's different about us and others is we're relentlessly generous. But the other person doesn't know, what does that look like? What does that mean? Right. And I think pulling out those specifics, even if it's just a couple examples, we're relentlessly generous. For example, we do A, we do B. Whereas most people will only do this, we do this. And in all these cases, you don't actually need, sometimes even one example is enough, right? You don't need a ton of things, but when you can give that sort of those specifics, it helps people understand. So it's finding that phrase, finding that differentiation point. And by the way, for anyone that's listening to this, there was a podcast episode that I put out. I'll link to it in the show notes. There was an interview with a differentiation expert that's all about how to differentiate your brand and your message. So highly recommend checking out that one. But that specificity and those concrete examples will help people understand what that means. And then they can extrapolate.
And so with the specificity, is this being communicated on our homepage, on a sales page on the website, in emails? I think part of it is like getting people to get to the meeting with me, even getting that first meeting. We're doing pretty well from there on out, but I've struggled to like figure out where it gets communicated.
Yeah, perfect question. So the short answer to that is all of the above. Yes, all of the above. It's on your website. It's in your messaging. It's in your social content. It's in your emails, your newsletter, your personal conversations with people. You're reinforcing it everywhere. And it's funny that you asked sort of about the website, because that's where I wanted to go next with you, right? So in terms of refining your messaging and communicating that unique value, I think you want to review all of your copy again on website and proposals and all of this stuff. You want to review it and you want to be looking for two elements. And one is specificity, which I just touched on a little bit, and the other is results. A lot of times people are just talking about the thing that they do and they'll go, oh, it's going to help you. You need a fractional executive. We'll help get you a fractional executive. But what are the results that they get from you giving them a fractional executive, right? You always want to get back to specifically defining things and the results they generate. With that in mind, you want to always make the main thing the main thing. So I took a quick look at your website and I thought it was really interesting because when we talk, you're able to describe very clearly what you guys do and what makes you unique. And but I don't know that that's translated really to your current copy, which feels a little more generic. And so I want to point out a couple things. This is based on the copy on your website right now. So his website, for anyone who wants to check it out, is malloyindustries.com. We'll link to it in the show notes, but it's MALLOY industries.com. So right now, the current headline on your homepage says, stop settling for average, scale with the expertise you need when you need it. Now, here's what's fascinating to me. You describe your business as enhancing the effectiveness of B2B SaaS CEOs by matching them with the right fractional sales executives. Your current headline on your homepage has no reference to sales, leads, or revenue, which is the actual result that they're going to get, right? So again, your current headline is stop settling for average, scale with the expertise you need when you need it. But the end result, the reason to do that is to get more sales, leads, and revenue. I assume that's what they want, right? That's the result. That's not missing. Now, if you go further down the page, if you scroll down your page, you have another headline in a separate section that says get more leads that actually turn into sales. That's doing what I'm talking about. That's probably a better headline than the headline you have at the top. And this is another thing that I see that's very common. I don't know, I'm not exactly sure why it happens, but it happens all the time. And I find myself guilty of it as well. Is that I don't know if we overthink it, but a lot of times the main headline that people use will be obscure or like they're trying to maybe be too clever. But then further down the page, they'll have the simple, straightforward, yeah, that's it. So I'm not surprised that you actually have it on your page somewhere. That's the really simple one, right? That's the end result that the fractional executive is a tool and a tactic that's helping them get that result. But that's ultimately what they want. The other thing is, all that said, I do think there's some things that are completely missing, right? So like you describe your target audience as B2B SaaS CEOs. And if I don't scroll down on your homepage, I don't see anywhere the words B2B SaaS or CEO. So if I'm a B2B SaaS CEO looking, however I got there, right? I'm a B2B SaaS CEO looking at your homepage. I don't know that I'm your ideal person. I don't know that you're a perfect fit for me because you're not telling me clearly. And that's what you want. What you really want in homepages and sales pages, et cetera, is if how you get people there is a different story, right? But if your ideal person hits that page, you want them to immediately know that they're the ideal person for you. You're the ideal person, right? You can't
we're an ideal match. This is
right. Exactly. And it's tough to do that without using those words. So I put together a simple exercise that you can use to help clarify your communication. And I think this will help you with your homepage, your sales page, your content, your everything, right? So it's a simple communication exercise that I call 3x3x3 messaging. And here's how it works. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to pick 3 results that your customers will get in order of importance to them if they hire you, right? So in your case, it might be those 3 results might be more revenue, more leads, and a higher conversion rate. Then you're going to pick 3 characteristics of your ideal buyer. So in your case, it might be that they're a B2B SaaS CEO. It might be that they have annual revenue of a certain amount. And it might be that they have
20 million. Yeah.
Right. And it might be that they have sales and a certain number of sales employees. It could be different things. I'm just making this up and riffing it. But basically you pick 3 characteristics of your ideal buyer. And then the third thing is you're going to pick the 3 most likely reasons one of those people wouldn't buy. Right. So it might be that these are common ones. It might be, oh, they don't buy because it's too expensive. They don't buy because they don't trust you, or they might not buy because they're worried about bringing someone in and it's shaking up their internal culture. Again, this will be different for everyone, and you'll know what those things are. But if you do that, if you make a list and you go, okay, here's the 3 results my customers will get in order of importance to them. Here's the 3 characteristics of my ideal buyer. And here's the 3 most likely reasons that person wouldn't buy. Now make sure all 9 of those things are addressed in your messaging everywhere. Now you have a guide. You have a filter to go look at your homepage. And you can look at your homepage and go, okay, is the homepage speaking to, have I referenced the 3 things that are most important to my customers, the 3 results, right? Have I referenced the 3 characteristics of my ideal buyer? And have I countered the 3 reasons they would be most likely not to buy? If you do that, if you check those boxes on those 9 items, it almost doesn't matter what else you do.
Yeah.
You're going to be fine, right? You're going to be fine. Doesn't mean it can't be better and everything can be improved and all of that. But that 3 by 3 by 3 exercise and checking the boxes on those 9 things on a homepage, on a sales page, in a sales email, in a face-to-face or phone call pitch, just doing that, you're going to be you're 90% of the way there, right? The rest is window dressing. Does that all make sense? Any questions about that?
It does. I do have a question on the third 3 with the 3 reasons they're likely not to buy. I think it's pretty easy to just include the messaging about, let's say, revenue, leads, and higher conversion rate, define who they are. I can imagine a way of doing it with a testimonial or a case study, perhaps, for the reasons that they're not. But are there other ways to do it besides just like putting the same testimonial or case study or thing on every page?
Testimonials and case studies can be great. Give me, if you want, we can do a specific example. Give me, what do you think would be one of the 3 reasons that people might not buy from you or might not hire you?
I think they don't understand exactly what they're getting. So like for people who've never worked with a fractional executive, part of our sales process is educational work. Like, what is a fractional sales executive? And we have a newsletter dropping soon about what is a fractional executive. So if it's not clear what they're getting in terms of what the tool they're tempted is and like how to work with a fractional, and then historically there've been like confusion around price of like how much are they paying for this thing they don't know what they're getting.
So let me give you an example. You could very easily, and I'll talk homepage, but this could be in again, a variety of places, right? But you could easily have on your homepage something with a little headline that's not sure what a fractional executive is. Boom, boom, boom. Not sure how a fractional executive works. Not sure if a fractional executive is right for you. If you're blah, 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 if you're blah, 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 this is right for you. So you can have, which would be very helpful for you anyway, and you probably do have, because I'm sure you get those questions and you have to explain it before. You can probably have a 1-paragraph description very easily that explains and makes it clear to people what a fractional executive is. And so that's the other way to do it, right? So case studies and testimonials and that stuff is helpful. But in that question where it's an education problem, you can literally just make it be like you're answering the question that they have. Not sure, maybe so this is maybe they're not quite sure what a fractional executive is. What's another concern or thing that might prevent them from buying?
Not knowing how much it's going to cost. We don't put pricing on our website. And at this point, I would say like we tell everybody it's $10K to get started with a fractional sales executive. You're getting 40% capacity. And you can ramp it up or down on a month-to-month basis after the first month.
Okay. So you could say a version of that, right? Like now it's up to you whether you want to, if you decide, look, I don't want any price. So one version of it is it starts at 10K, which at least just clears out the people that aren't going to pay 10K. If you decide that you don't want, if you decide you don't want to reference any specific prices there, that's fine too, but you can still address the question, right? So you can explain, so they can say, oh, but how much does it cost? And then you can have some language that everything's custom to your situation. We typically work with companies that earn X amount of revenue. We're happy to have a conversation and give you a quote and let you know whatever, right? So even if you don't want to answer it and put specific numbers on there, it doesn't mean you can't address the concern. Because this, I think this is a big thing too, is understanding that these concerns, these things that are going to prevent people from buying your stuff, they're happening whether you address it or not. So sometimes people are like, well, yeah, but maybe it's not, people aren't buying this because they think it's too expensive and it is really expensive. And I don't really want to necessarily talk that. I don't want to scare them off. That conversation's already going on in their head. So they're already wondering about the price. And it's okay if you don't want to publicly list your prices. I'm not saying you need to publicly list it, but you can still address a reason why it's not publicly listed, right? You can still say, look, it depends on the situation. We're happy to have a conversation with you and give you a sense. It's not a one size fits all thing. We work with you within your budget. You can use whatever language you want, but choosing not to put anything doesn't prevent them from wondering what the
Yeah.
price is.
And
So,
not reaching out. And I would love for somebody to schedule a 15-minute meeting to talk
yep,
to us, and we can understand, like, maybe there is the 5K thing, or even you
yep,
just need a one-off $2,500. Hey, we can do this. We're not going to make a lot of money, but we'll help you. And again, we'll be relentlessly
exactly.
generous. And as you get bigger and need more things, you can come
Yeah.
back.
And by the way, even that, right? Because some people may be like, oh, they're hesitant to get into, if I reach out to find the price, now they're going to try to sell me, blah, blah, blah. But even playing that up, right? Even being like, we'll have a 5-minute call with you and talk to you about the price. Like
Yeah.
and you can have fun with it. You can be like, look, we start the timer. We're going to get on a Zoom. We're going to start a timer for 5 minutes, and we will not take up more than 5 minutes of your time unless you want us to. And we will, in that 5 minutes, tell you how it works and tell you what the price is, right? Again, knocking down all those, any reasons that people are going to not take that next step, which in your case might be to get on the phone call or get a meeting or whatever. You want to line up all those reasons why they might say no and just start knocking them down, right? They might not do a call because they don't want to get sucked into being pitched for half an hour or whatever. Okay, 5-minute call.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, that kind of stuff, and addressing it will always help you.
And Josh, if you scroll the very bottom of our homepage, we do have some like frequently asked questions there, but we do use Hotjar and a lot. It don't make it all the way down there. I'm wondering, is there a better way to do it than having that FAQ? Should it be higher up? We have a bunch of social proof and things.
Yeah, I mean, I think the FAQ is good. Again, you're right in that it's a long way for people to get there. So most people probably don't get there. Some of it can be subtly incorporated. So you can have the sort of full answers down there, but some of it can be subtly incorporated into some of the copy in other sections, right? Because with a lot of it, you don't necessarily need
A formal FAQ, click the answer thing. Like we can just have a headline.
Yeah, depending what the thing is, you can probably incorporate it into sort of other sections, right? Even if I'm not saying this is exactly the place to put it, right? But you have this section, ready to overcome your business challenges. Then you have a little paragraph there at Malloy Industries. We connect you with top fractional sales executives who bring the know-how to scale your B2B SaaS only when you need it without the overhead. You could literally add a sentence below that that's like a call to action. That's want to know how this would work. Curious to know what the investment is, or whatever you want to address in that thing. You could add a sentence there that's like a call to action to hop on a call. Want to save time and not read all about this on this page and just talk to us? Click here and let's get on the phone. And by the way, there may be some people that are like, yeah, I'd rather just talk to someone for 5 minutes. I don't want to scroll down and read all this stuff. Right. So that there's ways you can do that, right? Where you can just insert it in without it being the full section. You still have the full section at the bottom, but you can just slip in these little, you can almost think about it as a shortcut, right? Maybe there's someone that hits the page and they just want to get to getting on the phone with you. They think they're a unique, delicate flower and they need to tell you about their specific situation, that kind of thing. Cool. So we're going to get to your second question, but just really quickly before I do that, a quick side note. If you are listening to or watching this episode, first of all, thank you. I assume it's because you want to learn how to use content to get more customers. That's exactly what I help members do in my Skill Sessions membership. I have sessions like the Expert Positioner, which give you exercises you can use to figure out how to best position your business in the market to get more attention and customers. Plus, sessions like the Client Generator will show you how to get more clients, and the Sentence Collection will help you write the 30 most crucial sentences in your business. As a member, you also get one-on-one help from me each month and our jam session coaching calls. Go to joshspector.com/sessions to learn more, or feel free to email me at josh@joshspector.com. If you have any questions or want to know if it's a good fit for your needs, I will be happy to talk to you about it. And I don't actually want you to become a member if it's not a good fit for your needs, because that's not good for either of us. So anyway, happy to hear from you and answer any questions you have. Now let's get back into it. Mike, what is your second question?
What did the sushi say to the bumblebee?
Wasabi. No. Oh boy. There we go. I have to say, the dad jokes here are either going to make you my most popular or least popular guest. Somewhere, so you're going to really split the audience, I think.
I celebrate the full spectrum. I have a wife who
Yeah.
knows how to put her head down and shake. And I had a woman today who was rolling back in her chair, laughing, throwing her arms in the air. So,
See? Perfect.
yeah.
Cool.
And so considering that like our service is catering to a niche within the B2B SaaS market in the US, what content strategies and topics would you recommend to attract our ideal audience? And are there any recommendations on like how to tailor it across LinkedIn or an email newsletter, which are really the two main ways that we're putting content out?
Okay. So what are you currently doing? How are you currently approaching content and deciding what to post and share and all that?
Yep. So I'm trying to post 5 days a week on LinkedIn around 9 a.m., talking about things related to sales, entrepreneurship, having a growth mindset, and a little bit of personal development sprinkled in there. And also engaging with other people's content. That's a whole different LinkedIn strategy.
Right.
And then it took me 2.5 years to launch an email newsletter called Business Bites, but we launched it. And I think we're shipping episode 6, maybe in a week or two. Every 2 weeks, we're getting one of those out and trying to make them about 1,000 words. So it also goes on our website, drive some traffic there. Yeah.
And are you just posting about whatever you feel like and comes to mind? Are you mapping out like these are the topics I want to hit? So and by the way, either way is fine. I'm just curious, how are you figuring out what you
Yeah.
want to talk about?
I think for LinkedIn, we're focusing on sales optimization, sales strategy, and scaling sales. So things all
Mhm.
pulling into that fractional sales executive related bucket. And then for Business Bites, it's more like advice for CEOs. Like we had a couple on time management, time blocking strategies, had one about like Doors framework for personal development. The next one we're working on is what is a fractional executive. So that's something that has come up a lot. And I have a very long SEO optimized blog post that Hotjar tells us nobody actually reads and want to have a shorter version because as we're in the consultative sales process, the first person may know what a fractional executive is, but they have other stakeholders involved in the decision making. We want an article that they'll actually read to then understand exactly what it is, the tool tactic with us that will get them the more sales revenue leads type thing. Does that make sense?
Okay. So I just pulled up, I hadn't looked at this before, but so I just pulled up your newsletter sign up page, which is on the malloyindustries.com site. You go into resources and you go to Business Bites newsletter. So this is the headline and description on your newsletter sign up page. So the headline is digestible tips for entrepreneurs on the go. And then it says, get quick, impactful insights with Business Bites, Malloy Industries' essential newsletter for entrepreneurs. Each issue brings you actionable frameworks and expert advice to tackle the most pressing challenges in sales, marketing, HR operations, and more. Transform your business with insights that lead to results. So my first question would be not just with this, with anything, but is this going to attract, is the person that is your ideal customer, your ideal buyer, going to look at this and be like, I need to subscribe to that? And what I find in a lot of cases, and I think may be the case with this as well, is people tend to construct newsletters and position them in a way that they're broader. Your target audience might subscribe to this, but I have a hunch a lot of people that are not your target audience would also subscribe to this. But I don't know.
Yeah.
You would know better. You would know better
I-
than me.
You are right. And I struggle with this isn't just a B2B SaaS CEO newsletter. This is more of a entrepreneurial advice newsletter that
So why is my question.
part of it is I'm a teacher and I just want to be able to teach and share what I'm learning. During COVID, I started a Malloy's Musings, which was like a super duper long, took me 20 hours to write in MailChimp newsletter. And I don't do that anymore.
Mhm.
I don't have the 20 hours. And
Right.
this was like, hey, something you can read in 3 to 5 minutes, that they're going to learn something helpful.
So here's the key thing to consider. It's fine to have a newsletter targeting whatever you want about whatever you want. And it's fine. Like sometimes people just want to share
Yeah.
what they know and they want to get back and it's a fun project and whatever. I'm not going to tell you not to do that. What I'm going to say is some of it is like, what's your goal for the newsletter, right? If the goal for your newsletter is to get customers and you're using it as that. Now, again, it can do both. It's not all or nothing, right? But if the goal
Yeah.
is to get customers, then in theory, you want the newsletter to be designed to attract the most likely. And more importantly, what you want is again, going back to what we were saying before, the person that is your ideal customer, you want them to look at it and be like, this is a no brainer for me to sign up for, right? You don't want them to be like, I don't know. I'm a B2B
Yeah.
SaaS CEO. I'm not a entrepreneur on the go. Now, if you go the other route and you're like, you know what? Yeah, it'll be nice. This will help us get us some customers, but that's not really, I'm doing it because I like doing it. And it's a sort of outlet and which is all totally fine. And yeah, it'll bring in some people and we'll get some, like, there's value to that too. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. But if you were telling me my goal for the newsletter is to get customers, I would tell you to get a little more specific, even if the newsletter itself even if you're writing the same newsletter, the sign up page of it, the name, the way you describe it, I would tell you to get more specific to get the people that are gonna be your best fit thing. And again, I don't know that this is true. This is my own perception of it. I
Yeah,
don't know
Josh,
that
you
people that
literally
are,
write, the best newsletter that I've ever received. I've unsubscribed from
hey,
everything. The only thing my personal Gmail
thank
that
you.
goes in the main box is your daily one, and you're for the interested. So like you're
Thank
on the top of the newsletter game. So I'm going to take your advice to heart for sure.
So to me, and one of the questions I would have is, does your target audience, target customer, think of themselves as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So you're going to know that better. So if they do, then that fits and that makes sense, right? Because a lot of times I think a lot of CEOs don't think of themselves as entrepreneurs because they're running a company that they didn't necessarily found. But in your world, if that works, then
It's definitely like still the guy who founded it is the entrepreneur, and it's not like the CMO that they hire who's going to buy our thing for their marketing team.
right.
We're going to the CEO who is 9 times out of 10 also the founder.
Okay. And when you reference entrepreneurs on the go, what do you mean by the on the go part? Just that they're busy, that
They're busy. But I don't like using the word busy because I think it has a negative connotation. Like, oh, I'm too busy to do this. Like, I'll often send a follow-up email and be like, I bet you had an action-packed week and that's why you missed my email. Not, you're so busy.
So let me ask you a question. So I think the underlying message you're trying to get across there is right. I think there might be a better way to describe it, or a more powerful way.
Yeah.
So the people that are these entrepreneurs that are going to hire your fractional executives, I'm assuming they're doing so because they feel stretched too thin. They feel overwhelmed. They need help. Is that a safe assumption? Okay.
Yeah.
So if you had a choice between digestible tips for overwhelmed entrepreneurs, for entrepreneurs who feel the stretch too thin, I guess what I'm saying is I would get to their sort of emotional problem. On the go doesn't suggest a problem. If anything, it may suggest, hey, I'm on top of everything. I'm an entrepreneur on the go. Like I've got everything. I've got everything happen. And I think what you actually mean is I'm drowning. Like I need help. Right. I'm over. And for whatever it's worth, the word overwhelmed, I have found in all niches and all markets, like these days, everybody resonates with overwhelmed. Everybody feels overwhelmed.
Let me click on that for a second, because I have in my email signature, I have been saying like Malloy Industries helps overwhelmed entrepreneurs, yada, yada, yada. And I was thinking literally today about changing it. Maybe the word isn't overwhelmed. Maybe it should be something else. Maybe people, and I think part of it is like when I send a forwardable email for somebody to refer business to us, because most of our leads are through word of mouth, I say overwhelmed in there. And I wonder if how much people to a friend would be like, oh, I'm overwhelmed. Like I need help.
So here's an example where there's no definitive right answer and you can test and tweak, but this is one of the interesting ways that you can use social as market research without people realizing it's market research. So let's say you're considering a couple different words. If you didn't use overwhelmed, what word might you use or phrase might you use instead?
Well, Josh, I was going to ask you for the synonyms. You just threw out stretched too thin, juggling too many balls, wearing too many hats.
Right. So let's say that you could do a post one day that's something about, like, in the lead on that LinkedIn post, let's say you're like, does anyone else feel overwhelmed? Or do you feel overwhelmed? Or do you whatever? And then you write some post about feeling overwhelmed and what that means, whatever. Right. But really what you're looking to see is, does it get a lot of likes, more likes than usual? Does it get comments? Even if you said, do you ever feel overwhelmed? Or on a scale of 1 to 10, how overwhelmed do you feel? Right. And then you maybe wait a week or two and you do another one that's like, on a scale of 1 to 10, do you feel, how stretched too thin do you feel, or whatever? And that comparison that you're workshopping messaging.
Yeah.
right? But they're just reacting, and you will most likely, now it might be similar, but a lot of times you will see clearly this resonated in a way that the other one didn't. That's one way to test language. Another way to test language is with your newsletter subscribers. So whether you link to something you wrote or something someone else wrote, have a link that has the love this advice for overwhelmed entrepreneurs. Whatever, it doesn't matter what you're linking to. Find some video on YouTube, whatever. You're just trying to see how many people click that. And then later run a separate link that's love this advice for entrepreneurs who feel stretched too thin. You're going to see, it doesn't matter what the content is because they're judging it based on that link. And you're going to see, oh, twice as many people clicked overwhelmed. Overwhelmed resonates, at least with the people on my newsletter or the people on LinkedIn or whatever. So using that, that's a great way. And you can use this for anything that you want to test, right? It's a great way to learn stuff. The other thing, a few more tips here for you in terms of content strategies and topics and stuff. So I mentioned before in the previous question that 3x3x3 messaging exercise that can inform your content too, right? Like you can create a ton of content about those 3 most valuable results they want, the 3 characteristics of your ideal buyer, and the counters to the 3 reasons they won't buy. Every one of those individually is an endless source of content, right? So that's an easy way to do it. A couple key decisions that you want to make with your content and what you're talking about. You want to be clear. Are you trying to, in your case, are you trying to convince people to try a fractional executive, or are you going after people who have already used one or know they want one, or both? Those are different markets.
Yeah.
If it's both, you want to have some content that's speaking to the people that know what it is and know they want one, and or have used one before. And then you want to have some content that's speaking to people that aren't the education piece, right? They don't know, they've never thought of it, that kind of thing. Another key decision are on social. Are you using company accounts or personal accounts or both?
Personal.
Yeah. Okay. And I think with LinkedIn, that's what I would typically recommend.
Yeah.
But if you have, I don't know how many people work for your company or not, or whatever, but leveraging that, right? So if you're posting something that you want additional reach, other people in your company should be commenting on it. It's going to boost the reach, right? And vice versa. If other people, like, there can be times, you don't have to do it every time, but when there are posts that you're like, I really want to get this seen, you should be letting people know, hey, share it, comment on it, like it, whatever. And you should coordinate so that they're doing it right when it's posted.
First hour,
with the algorithm. That's gonna boost it. Another simple concept tip is pay attention to whatever questions you get asked. Your answer to any question you get asked is easy content. I have a thing I tell people a lot of time. You have amazing LinkedIn posts sitting in your inbox. Go to your sent emails and just scroll through and see what you have said to people. And sometimes you can even just cut and paste it and anonymize it or whatever. But if nothing else, you'll go through and you'll be like, oh yeah, I told this person how to do that. And this person asked me that. And you have tons of content sitting in your sent inbox. Another thing is to think about what your target customers are consuming and how you can get yourself there. So are there other newsletters? Are there podcasts they listen to that you can be on, going where they are, as opposed to always trying to draw them to you? Also, if you have a sense of this is another tip. If you subscribe to a bunch of newsletters, let's say that your audience is likely to subscribe to, as you're reading them, just take a note of anything that you're like, oh, I have an opinion about that, or I disagree with that, or that was great. And then just write about that. I saw such and such's newsletter the other day and he said, blah, 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 but I actually think this is the case. So you can use other people's newsletters as prompts for your own, and you don't have to disagree with them. You could say, this person shared this and I found that to be so true. Here was my experience with it, right? It doesn't have to be negative. It can be positive as well. The other thing is if you can find something, if your target audience is entrepreneur or SaaS CEOs or whatever, can you find a newsletter, let's say a newsletter or podcast that appeals to SaaS CEOs? And can you, either as a paid sponsorship or some sort of partnership with them, can you say, hey, how about once a month, I write a column for you that's hiring tips for SaaS CEOs. So you're giving them free content in exchange for getting in front of their audience. Yep. Or you're paying them as a sponsor. You say, hey, look, I'd love to sponsor your newsletter. I don't want an ad spot. I'd like to have a little blurb column where I give a hiring tip. Can we do that? So those are all ways to get your stuff out there. And then the last thing here in terms of content is I love giving specific actionable stuff. So here is a 30-day content plan that you can use. It's basically I want to give you the world's simplest 30-day content system. So here's how it works. First thing you're going to do is you're going to pick 6 things your target audience wants to accomplish, 6 of their goals. So maybe they want more money, they want more leads, whatever it is, 6 goals that they have. Then for each of those 6 goals, each of the 6 things they want to accomplish, you're going to come up with 5 things they need to know how to do in order to accomplish. So you want more revenue, you need to know how to do these 5 things to get it. You now have 30 things you can tell people how to do that they'll find valuable, because every one of those things can become its own LinkedIn post, for example, or newsletter issue or whatever you want.
Yeah.
You can publish those 30 things on social, 1 per day for a month. You now have a month's worth of daily LinkedIn posts that are all relevant and all helpful and valuable. At the end of the month, you can look at how they all performed. You can take the 10 or 15 that perform the best and post them again the next month. You can then come up with 15 new lessons related to those topics to try to flesh out your daily posts for the next month. So now you have your 30 posts for month 2, 15 of which work and 15 of which are new sort of experiments related to the same topics before. And then you can just repeat that. And over time, what you're doing is you're throwing stuff out there, you're figuring out what's working, you're reusing the stuff that works, and you're building this library. And all of it is being guided by valuable posts helping them accomplish something that they want to accomplish. So that is a really simple 30-day content system, very easy to do as long as you have an idea of who your target customer is and what they want to accomplish.
I love
Make
it.
sense?
It makes brilliant sense. And nobody could tell anybody else what they posted 33 days ago. So it's going to look like brand new content in month 2. That's,
yeah. And also and the other thing is with these algorithms, most people didn't see it anyway.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. What's so crazy is we're always hesitant. Most people don't. You should repurpose your stuff and reuse it much more often. And when it works once, it'll work again almost all the time. And if that feels too frequent for you, you could take the same structure and repost it once every 3 months. Like you can play with whatever you want. But yeah, it definitely can help. So let's get to your third and final question.
And you have to know that it's going to be a real serious one. What did the yoga instructor say to her landlord when he tried to evict her?
Something. Oh, there you go. Oh, there you go. Should have seen that. I should have seen that one coming. I went 0 for 3. Hopefully I can answer your other questions.
You've been nailing the even numbered questions as we've gone through. So number 6 here. How can we better align our offering with the specific needs and challenges of B2B CEOs that they're looking for with respect to sales leadership solutions? And do you have any insights on like how to package our services and highlight their value and ROI more effectively? Like we have kind of fractional sales executives as well as sales development reps.
So I was going to say, start by talking me through what your current offerings are.
So our primary offering is a fractional sales executive, someone with 10 to 40 years of experience in sales, and they can come in as a leader of the sales team. They can come in to transition from founder-led sales to, okay, hey, now we have somebody else selling, not just the founder. They can also help train the existing sales team. If you have a handful of SDRs and account execs, and they're not necessarily meeting their quotas, part of it is you need to invest in training. And that's something we can absolutely help with. We've seen many CEOs who, one, were not great salespeople and are definitely not great sales managers that are running the weekly sales pipeline, meeting with their reps. And that's not a hat they should be wearing. Yeah. So that's our primary offering.
Okay. And is there a secondary one or it's just the fractional sales executive?
So there is, and there's going to give you two here, but I'll stick with the sales. As we've talked to a lot of B2B staff CEOs, we've heard many of them say, hey, I need help setting appointments with qualified leads. Like I don't need closing the deals. We can do that. That's great, but we don't have enough top of the funnel pipeline. That's not work for a fractional sales exec. That's work for an SDR to go out, find a lead list, pick up the phone, do a bunch of calls, send emails, LinkedIn messages, qualify and get those meetings. So I'm not the guy to build a new SDR firm. I actually asked a mentor of mine who built an SDR firm, sold it for 8 figures. Hey, who are the best firms? He gave me 3 vetted, recommended SDR firms that we now partner with. And so we'll help a company identify what are they looking for, match them with one of those 3. Then if you go under services on our website, I bet that's going to be still the top of the funnel. And then the second one is the fractional sales executives. So those are our 2 main sales offerings. And then when we started this business 3 years ago, we were all fractional executives in every industry and every business function. So like I do have fractional HR executives. I placed one yesterday,
Okay.
started today. We have fractional CFOs, which is the most familiar fractional role, like a fractional CFO. Like we can
Yep.
do operations, marketing, HR, executive coaching, basically any seat on the bus that is a part-time seat for 5 to 25 hours a week. We have people for that, but we
Okay.
don't have a specific sales page for on our website. It's
Yep.
more opportunistic with emails coming in my inbox.
Okay. So you had two questions here. And so I think I'm going to take the second one first. So the second one was about how to package these services, highlight their value and ROI.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tackle that one first. So there's a couple questions that I think are thought exercises that are just worth you thinking through. And maybe they open up possibilities for you. Maybe they don't. It really just depends on the business. But the first is, I think it's really helpful to ask yourself when you have multiple things you offer, what would you do if you had to bundle them? So what would you do if you had to offer a package where, and it won't fit everyone, but there may be some companies where they need the sales leader and they need someone to go generate the leads and whatever. And thinking about, is there a bundle that you could create based on the multiple things that you're already offering, which is not going to cost you anything additional. It's just another way to play with what you
Yeah.
have to offer. And there might be, and is there a customer that's appealing for because they actually need more than one of those things? And is it costing you business because they're like, yeah, well, but if we have that, we still don't have the leads. So having the fractional salesperson isn't going to help us, or vice versa. We're going to get these leads, but how are we going to manage them? So it's funny. I can't remember where I heard this. I think it might have been I'm blanking on the name of the book. There's a book that's basically about like the history of sort of communication and media businesses. And it goes all the way from like the invention of the telephone to radio to TV to internet to whatever. And essentially it is all followed the exact Tim Wu, I think is the author. I forget the name of the book. It has always followed the same cycle. And essentially it's just the perennial bundling and unbundling of stuff, right? You're seeing it now with streaming. Suddenly everyone's going to have their own streaming things and you don't need cable TV. And now everything's being bundled back together and everything is just forever being bundled up and then unbundled. So it's an interesting way to look at your business and go, okay, well, if we had to bundle some stuff, if we had to create a bundled offer of what we have, what would we do? And then the opposite is also true, right? What would you do if you had to unbundle some of your stuff? So for example, if you had to, like your current fractional executive, and it may work for your business, it may not, but it's an interesting thought exercise to go, okay, if we had to offer a fractional executive and unbundle the things that person does, what might that look like? And would that create different price points and different opportunities? And would it draw people in who might then upgrade to the other thing? It might be good for you. It might not be good for you, but
Yeah.
everything can be bundled or unbundled. So those are good things to think about. The other thing is, are you talking to your buyers and do you have any kind of system in place to actually talk to people who are ongoing clients or have just become clients and get a sense of what they're saying? Because a lot of times we think that we know and we're using our own sort of knowledge, but when you actually talk to someone, you'll be amazed the language they use, the words they use, the things they value, the reasons they made their decisions. You can learn a lot that can then inform how you communicate and present your value. What you think the ROI they're getting is may not be exactly what they think the ROI is. And it may be the same, but they may use different language to describe the ROI than you use. So conversations with buyers is really helpful. And then again, the flip side of that, conversations with non-buyers is really helpful. If you have a pitch, if you have someone that seems like a perfect fit for you and they don't buy, not in a pressure way, but like to go back to them and be like, hey, I'm just curious, like why not? Is it too expensive? And again, not pressuring them, but you can learn a ton from the reasons that people don't buy, just like you can learn a ton from the reasons that people do buy.
Do you have any more advice on how to frame that conversation, either via email? If somebody says, hey, no, we're not interested. We have one in mind that happened last week. Like how to politely, again, I'm not trying to pressure them, hey, buy the thing. Like I'm a student of the game. I want to get better.
So is that in this example, is it someone that you've actually had conversations with? Like
we had a first sales meeting. They were interested in the SDR offering. We booked a second meeting
so I think if you've had like that kind of interaction with them, you can always, the approach is, I guess, relatively similar either way. It's basically like, totally get it. It's not a fit for everyone. We always are trying to learn, like when you can make it seem like it's a thing that you always do, which it maybe should be a thing you always do,
Yeah.
right? But you can say to them, look, when someone decides we're not a good fit for them, it's always helpful for us to understand why, because we always want to hone in on who we're the best fit for. If you'd mind, and you can do it by email or hop on a Zoom or a call or whatever, would you mind just answering a couple quick questions about like why you think this isn't a fit? And some people will say no, but a lot of people, if you ask politely and you're like, hey, I'm going to email you 3 questions and just send me back a sentence or two, I think a lot of people will be willing to do that. And I think as long as they don't feel like you're trying to still sell them, like if
Yeah.
they feel like you're genuinely trying to learn for future reference, and I like that the language I just used about like why it's not a fit makes it feel like you're just trying to figure out, it's not like accusatory.
No, it's like, it's
Right.
totally
It's like
fine. You don't like Hawaiian shirts.
clearly
Yeah.
this wasn't a good fit, which is totally cool. I'm just curious. We just want to know what about it made it not a good fit so that we can we're not trying to convince you. You just don't want them to feel like you're trying to convince them and push them and whatever. And I think if you come at it like a non-obnoxious person, I think a lot of
Yeah.
people will be happy to do it. And also just making it really simple for them. Right.
And how would you recommend that simple, like 1 to 3 questions?
So I did something similar to this recently where I was doing it though before I framed it as market research. And
Yeah.
so I said, hey, I'm doing some market research. It's not a sales pitch or whatever. Because you wouldn't necessarily do this, but I said, because you fit my target market, I'm curious to hear your take on this. Are you up for a 15-minute call, or I'd be happy to email you questions if you prefer to do it that way. And most people actually were fine with a 15-minute call, but some were like, go, just send me the questions. And so I think if you say to someone, hey, are you up for a 15-minute call, or I'm happy to email you 3 or 4 questions, or you could link them if you wanted like a Google form or something. Would you fill out a 5-question survey, any of that? Yeah. Look, not everyone's going to say yes, but I think
You can learn a
you
lot.
don't need
Yeah.
everyone, right? Even a handful of people, like it'd be super valuable for you to know why that person said no, I assume.
Yeah. And I guess my follow on here is like, what are the 3, if I pick in 3 questions to email the guy,
Mhm.
what am I like, what?
What would you most want to know? I mean, I'm riffing here, so
Yeah.
here's what I would
Yeah.
think. So I don't know how, it depends also on how the conversation started with them. If they came to you,
Yeah. Well,
first question would be like, what made you reach out to us in the first place? What some version of what made you ultimately decide it wasn't a good fit. And then I think if I only had 3 questions, I think my third question might be some version of what are you planning to do instead to address your problem? Because in theory, they're going to do something. They've probably thought through, okay, we're not going to hire them. We're going to hire someone in-house, or we're going to do whatever we're going to do.
and they
I
take me
doubt they're
insight
going to
into who the competitors are of like the actual,
Right.
what the other
Right.
hammer they picked up.
Or even if they say, oh, we're not going to do anything, that's helpful too, because it made you realize, well, you know what? They don't really have a problem. They don't think they really have a problem. So we
Exactly.
didn't lose out on it because we were the wrong solution. We lost out on it because they don't really feel like it's a big enough problem to treat, basically. So I think, yeah, those questions I think would tell you a lot. And I would absolutely, if you are going to do some sort of Google form, I would absolutely have them be open-ended question. You want them saying their words. You don't want like a multiple choice thing.
Yeah, for sure. And just jumping back to the earlier thing you said,
Yeah.
we're getting close to the end here. I know. Am I talking to the buyers? I have a system in place. I do. I run something called a strategic business review with our clients, like every 2.5, 3 months. I have a great template agenda for it that I will share with you to drop in the show notes.
Cool.
Because I find it's
Great.
good to continue to grow business, and a little
Yeah,
bit about
that's
what we do in the
awesome.
past, but what else do you need to feel pride, confidence, and excitement in your business?
Yeah.
And then you get 5 answers, and then you map that onto other services. that
Cool.
You could perhaps bundle or unbundle, which I just learned on this call as well.
Yeah. See, there you go. And then, so the last thing that I'm going to give you here is actually some additional questions that I think is really helpful when it comes to talking to buyers. And you can do this, I think, especially maybe right after they buy. I mean, you can do it at different points, but I think when the decision is fresh in their mind, I think it's really helpful. And so what I'm going to give you here is what I call the 4 whys to ask a buyer. So it's 4 questions that you want to ask someone after they buy, which is going to reveal a lot of information that you can then use to help with your messaging and future pitching and presenting and all that. So the first question is, why did you buy now? not just why did you buy, but what something happened in their world that precipitated them deciding now's the time to buy this thing. So that time component, right? Not just why did you buy, but why did you buy now instead of last week or last month or last year? Really, really powerful. The second question is, why did you choose us? It's one thing to decide to spend money to address and try to solve a problem. There's a reason they chose you as opposed to other options. And you want to know what that reason is because it gets to your differentiation point. Then the third and fourth questions are actually sub questions of another question. So what you want to do is you want to ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your current performance in whatever it is that you help them with, right? So in your case, you might ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate your current sales team's performance? And it doesn't actually matter what they say, because what matters is their answer to the 2 follow-up questions. And you're going to ask both of these, right? These are the third and fourth why. So when they say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd rate my sales team's performance as a 7. You then say, okay, why isn't that higher? And it's going to get at what they feel like they're missing. And they hired you to help get that 7 up to a 10, an 8, a 9, or whatever. And then the flip side of that question is, okay, you said your sales team's performance is a 7. Why isn't that rating lower? And now they're going to tell you what they think they're actually doing well, because their rating doesn't actually matter. What matters is the missing pieces of the equation. These are the things that are preventing us from being a 10. These are the things that we're doing right. And this is why we're not a 1. And all of that is super valuable information, not only in the context of that buyer, but also in the context of what you can use in your messaging to attract future buyers. All good?
Yep. I have a waking up chief curious officer.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up then. Let everybody know where they can connect with you and get more of your stuff.
Yep. Thanks again, Josh. It's Mike at malloyindustries.com, MALLOY. Happy to connect on LinkedIn. And we got a page on our website, malloyindustries.com/pod, where we got some good resources for podcast listeners.
Cool. Go take care of your 2-year-old. Go tell him some dad jokes. For my stuff, everyone can check me out, my newsletter, fortheinterested.com/subscribe, and my skill sessions, joshspector.com/sessions. Thanks everyone for listening. I appreciate it. And I will see you next time.